Hello, everyone. Welcome to this English learning story. Today, we will explore the life of George Washington, the first President of the United States, a man remembered not only as a leader of a nation, but also as a symbol of courage, discipline, and vision. His story is not just about battles or politics. It is about patience, sacrifice, and the belief that freedom is worth fighting for. As you listen, you will practice your English. And as you practice, you will also discover how one man shaped the destiny of millions. George Washington was born on February 22, 1732, in Westmoreland County, Virginia. At that time, Virginia was not part of the United States because the United States did not yet exist. Instead, it was one of the 13 colonies under the rule of Great Britain. Washington grew up in a world where the British king held power, and American colonists were expected to obey. As a child, George lived on a farm with his family. His father, Augustine Washington, owned land and grew tobacco. His mother, Mary Ball Washington, taught her children the values of honesty, hard work, and respect. George did not come from great wealth, but his family was respected. From a young age, he learned the importance of discipline and responsibility. There is a famous story told about George Washington as a boy. It is said that he once chopped down his father's cherry tree. When his father asked who had done it, young George replied, "I cannot tell a lie, father. I did it." Some historians believe this story is more legend than fact, but the meaning of the story became powerful in American culture. It shows Washington as a symbol of truth and integrity, values that would define his life. Education was different in the colonies. George did not go to university, and his formal schooling ended around the age of 15. But he was curious. He studied mathematics, surveying, and learned about the natural world. He read books on farming, military strategy, and leadership. What he lacked in formal education, he gained through self-learning and practical experience. At 17, Washington began working as a land surveyor. This job gave him valuable skills. He traveled through forests, mountains, and rivers, measuring land for settlers. He learned how to survive in the wilderness. He met Native American tribes. He understood the geography of Virginia and the frontier. These experiences would later help him as a soldier and a commander. Washington's first military experience came during the French and Indian War. This was a conflict between Britain and France, with Native American tribes on both sides. The war began in 1754, when George was only 22. The British government wanted to stop the French from controlling land in the Ohio Valley. George Washington was sent as a young officer to deliver a message to the French, warning them to leave the territory. It was a dangerous mission. Washington traveled hundreds of miles in freezing weather. He crossed icy rivers and dark forests. At one point, he almost drowned when his raft flipped in the cold water. But he completed the mission. The British saw his bravery, and soon he was given command of soldiers. In 1754, Washington led men into battle at Fort Necessity. It was his first experience commanding troops in combat. The battle ended in defeat. Washington was forced to surrender to the French. It was a painful lesson, but he learned that leadership was not only about courage. It was also about planning, discipline, and patience. During the French and Indian War, Washington continued to serve with bravery. He fought alongside British generals and learned about military strategy. He saw the weaknesses of British leadership, and he began to dream of an America that could defend itself. He became respected as a strong officer, even though he was still very young. When the war ended in 1763, Washington returned to Virginia. He married Martha Custis, a wealthy widow with 2 children. Martha and George never had children of their own, but Washington became a loving stepfather. Their marriage was built on respect and partnership. Martha supported him during difficult times, and he often wrote of her strength. Washington's life as a farmer was important. He lived at Mount Vernon, his plantation along the Potomac River. There, he grew crops, raised animals, and managed workers. But Washington was not only a farmer, he was also a thinker. He experimented with new farming techniques. He believed in progress and innovation. He was deeply connected to the land, and he understood the value of hard work. But while Washington worked on his plantation, something larger was happening in the colonies. The British government was demanding more taxes from Americans. The colonists had no representatives in the British Parliament, yet they were forced to pay heavy taxes. They called this taxation without representation. Slowly, anger began to spread. George Washington was not a man who sought fame, but he believed in justice. He spoke against unfair taxes like the Stamp Act of 1765. He joined other leaders in calling for unity among the colonies. He did not know it yet, but he was moving toward a destiny much greater than himself. By 1775, the American Revolution had begun. Colonists were fighting British soldiers at Lexington and Concord. The Continental Congress met in Philadelphia to decide how to resist British rule. George Washington attended as a delegate from Virginia. His tall figure, calm voice, and reputation as a soldier impressed everyone. Soon he was chosen as commander-in-chief of the Continental Army. This was not an easy honor. The army was weak, poorly supplied, and undisciplined. Washington had to turn farmers and shopkeepers into soldiers. He faced hunger, sickness, and constant defeat. But he never gave up. His strength was not only in battle, but in the way he inspired hope. One of the darkest moments came in the winter of 1777 at Valley Forge. Washington's army was freezing. Many soldiers had no shoes, no blankets, and little food. Disease spread through the camp. The army could have collapsed, but Washington stayed with his men. He walked among the soldiers, sharing their suffering. He prayed with them. He promised them that freedom was worth the pain. His leadership kept the army alive. In December 1776, Washington led one of the most daring moves of the war. On Christmas night, he crossed the icy Delaware River with his troops. In the freezing dark, they attacked the enemy at Trenton. The victory lifted American spirits and showed the world that the Revolution was not lost. Year after year, Washington fought against the powerful British Army. Sometimes he lost battles. Sometimes he retreated. But he always protected the heart of the American cause. Finally, in 1781, with the help of the French, Washington trapped the British at Yorktown. The British generals surrendered. The war was over. America was free. Washington could have taken power for himself. Some even wanted him to become king, but he refused. He believed that America should be a republic, a nation where the people had the power. His humility was extraordinary. After the war, he resigned as commander and returned quietly to Mount Vernon. The world was shocked. A victorious general giving up power was rare in history. But America was not yet stable. The 13 states were free, but they were divided. They needed a strong government. In 1787, leaders gathered at the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia. Washington was chosen